Just joined us, you're watching Newslink on DSTV channel 403. Now, communities in the Western Cape want to be much more involved in fighting crime. This as the murder rate in the province continues to rise. 994 people were killed between April and June this year. The Cape Flats Safety Forum says it wants police to recognize community-based organizations. Let's listen in on the briefing.
And without wasting time, I was starting with prayer. I see there's a chaplain here. No, let's continue. Let's continue. No offense for this. All right, okay. Without wasting time, I already introduced the panel in front of me, and we all know why we are here. On Friday, the quarterly stats were released, and as it is known, we also released the stats provincially, and that is why we are here. Our crime registrar, Brigadier Monica Swartz, will do like she did last time. She will take us through the presentation, and then at the end of the briefing, we will avail hard copies to you in case you did not. Sorry, Tana? Okay, that's fine. All right, without wasting time, Brigadier, can you allow the minister just to do a few introductory remarks? Thank you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Goeiemorgen almal. Mulweni. I think this is now again showing the clear indication that based on the previous quarter, when we've had this engagement, where we are fostering the relationship with the South African Police Service and with entities like the City of Cape Town, together with CPFs and neighborhood watches, from my side, I do want to make it extremely clear. We understand that community safety is everyone's responsibility. We are working with the South African Police Service, and we are sitting here today again as a clear indication that we are making headway. We do know we have a way to go, but it has been clear from my side that we want to work with the South African Police Service as the lead agency, but we also want to make it clear that we wouldn't want to play politics. Hence, I want to say that 994 murders or 994 murders too many. So we would never want to play politics. Hence, I am here with the PC. Thank you so much, General. And together with all the generals, the deputy commissioners, I do feel that we are making headway. We are on the right track. Umfundis, thank you for the prayers. We do know that we have religious fraternity that plays a key role. Other departments in this Western Cape government playing a key role, together with the South African Police Service, to make sure that we ultimately reduce crime in our province. So I'm looking forward to the briefing as well, and thank you that we were able to discuss some of the finer details earlier. And then obviously for the media, thank you. I've spoken to some people in the media, and we do realize when you go into an area and it's unsafe, we see that. We are not taking it for granted, and the big role that you play when some of you have been robbed for doing your duty, for doing your job, and key to our democracy in the media space. So thank you for being here as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Without wasting time, I'm now going to hand over to Brigadier Monica Swart, who is our crime registrar, to take us through the presentation. Over to you, Brig.
Thank you. Present or observed. I'll be presenting the crime statistics for the first quarter of the 2020-2023 financial year, and that is the period April to June 2022. In terms of the table of contents, we will be looking at the broad categories of crime, specifically highlighting the 17 community reported crimes. Then we will also look at specific crime categories as we go along. Firstly, I would just want to indicate in terms of the context of the COVID-19 lockdown levels. We are comparing the 2022 period with the 2021 period. And during 2021, we've been in three different lockdown levels. And that is for the first 2 months, we've been in full restrictions, and the curfew was from 12 o'clock till 4 in the morning. Then from the 31st of May until the 16th of June, we had also full restrictions with a curfew from 11 o'clock at night until 4 in the morning. And then for the latter part of June, which is from the 17th until the 27th of June, there was on and off-site consumption from Monday to Thursday from 10 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock in the evening, and a curfew from 10 o'clock till 4 o'clock in the morning. Then in this financial year, you will all recall that on the 5th of April, the national state of disaster was lifted. In other words, it will have an impact in terms of the crime picture that you will see when we actually compare it to the restricted periods in 2021. The picture you see is the Western Cape Province crime situation.
Can you move the mic closer to you?
This
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. The 17 community reported crimes. We will start off with the contact crimes. You will see overall we did have an increase in contact crimes. Our murders has increased from 992 in the previous financial year to 994, and that gives us an increase of 2 murders for the reporting period. Then the sexual offences reduced by 113 charges. Our attempted murders, we had 808 compared to 866 in the previous financial year, and that is a reduction of 58 attempted murders. And then the assault with the intent to inflict grievous bodily harm also decreased by 156 charges. We have seen increases in terms of common assault, 279 charges more. Common robberies increased with 339. And then the aggravated robbery category increased by 560 charges. We also just provide a breakdown of the different sexual offences, and that is rape, which make out about 70% of the sexual offences category. There we had an overall reduction of 46 charges, and then a sexual assault decreased with 46 charges. We had an increase on the attempted sexual offences on 15, and then a reduction on contact sexual offences 36. As I've indicated, we've reduced the sexual offences as a whole with 113 charges. When zooming into the aggravated robbery subcategories, you would note that our carjackings has increased from 589 to 754. That is an increase of 165 charges. Robbery at residential premises decreased by 36 charges from 659 to 623. Our business robberies increased by 4 charges. And then our truck hijackings increased from 23 to 36, and that is an increase of 13 charges. The next slide is the ratio of 100,000 of the population. In other words, if we look at the murder category, 13.8 people are likely to be murdered or was murdered in relation to 100,000 of the population. But you will note there is a slight decrease from the previous financial year, which was standing on 14 per 100,000 of the population. Rape, 15.5, also a slight reduction from 16.3 in the previous financial year. Our attempted murders per 100,000 of the population, 11.2, which is also a reduction from the previous year. Assault with the intent to inflict grievous bodily harm, 68.2, a reduction when looking at the previous financial year. And then common assault and common robberies both has increased when we look at the previous financial year. Common assault standing at 124.6 and common robberies at 32.8. The rest of the 17 community reported crimes, we've seen increases in terms of arson with 11 charges and malicious damage to property with 362 charges more. In the property related crimes, although there was an overall increase of 645, we had reductions in terms of burglary at non-residential premises, 49 less. Also reduction in the theft of motor vehicle as well as the stock theft. We've seen increases at burglary at residential premises with 388 charges more, and then the theft out and from motor vehicle also increased with 390 charges. Other serious crimes, the 3 categories you will note, theft not mentioned elsewhere, as well as commercial crime and shoplifting has increased. And then crimes dependent on police action for detection had a positive increase. You will note the green there. Illegal possession of firearm and ammunition increased from 571 to 640, and that's 69 charges more. Our drug-related crimes increased positively with 758 charges, and then driving under the influence of alcohol and drugs increased for 447 charges. So it's an overall increase on the crimes dependent on police action with 1,273 charges more. And that is based on police action. This is just a breakdown per month. If you look at the 17 community reported crimes, you would note that the volume increases were during the month of May and also in the month of June, with the overall increase of 7.3%. The 70 community reported crimes, this is our top 30 stations for the province. The yellow highlighted police stations are those ones that are also in the national top 30 for 17 community reported crimes. And there you will note that Cape Town Central, Mitchells Plain, Delft, Stellenbosch, Mufuleni, Nyanga, Worcester and Kraaifontein are in the top national stations, of which Cape Town Central is number 1. The contact crimes, there we have reductions in the month of April and increases in the month of May and June, with June recorded the most in terms of the increases, and as I've indicated previously, overall increase on contact crimes. The contact crime stations for the province, also once again the yellow highlighted ones are also part of the national top 30 stations. And there you would see Nyanga is our top contributing station, not only in the province but also nationally, followed by Delft, who is number 2 in the province and 5th nationally, and Mufuleni number 3 nationally, number 3 provincially and number 6 nationally. We also have Harare, Kailicha, Mitchells Plain, Kraaifontein, Cape Town Central and Philippi East as part of the national top 30 stations for contact crimes. The causative factors of the crimes that were analysed, we looked at murders, attempted murders and assault GBH. You will note that the top contributing factor for murders are arguments or misunderstandings. It also includes matters like road rage and provocation, and it's all not domestic related is the top contributing factor for murders in the province, followed by gang violence at 161, retaliation and revenge at 111, vigilantism and mob justice 75, robbery 65 and taxi violence 19. When we zoom into the attempted murders, you would note that gang violence was the top contributing factor with 229, followed by retaliation and revenge on 104. We also had high volumes of robberies as well as the arguments which are not domestic related. When we look at the assault GBH, you will note that most are due to arguments or misunderstandings with 2,539, followed by retaliation and revenge. There's also high numbers of robberies, vigilantism, and then also when a third person intervenes in the argument and he or she becomes the victim at 48. This is a breakdown of the crimes against women and children for the period under review. Your left-hand table reflecting the women that were murdered, you would note is 116, and it's an increase of 23 when compared to the previous financial year. Attempted murders against women decreased with 233 for the period under review, and then the assault GBH against women increased with 795. When zooming to the children younger than 17 years, you would note that we had a reduction in terms of the murders, but still a high volume of 29 children that were murdered against the 55 in the previous financial year. Our attempted murders against children increased with 10, and then assault GBH also increased with 138 charges. The places of occurrence for murders, attempted murders and assault GBH. The places of occurrence for murders and attempted murders are mostly in public spaces, but that is every open public space like an open street, open field, recreational parks, abandoned buildings, etc. and then followed by in the residence of a perpetrator or the victim. 232 murders and 227 attempted murders. When looking at the assault GBH, you would note that the residence of the perpetrator are the area where most of these incidents occurred at 1,231, followed by 894 that happened in public spaces. We also had a number of murders at liquor premises. 12, we had 17 attempted murders and 62 assault GBH incidents at liquor premises. The murder breakdown, you would note we had 19 reduction in terms for murders in the month of April, 2 less in the month of May, and then in the month of June we had 23 more murders. The top contributing stations for murders, you would note that our top 10 focus stations are still contributing to the volumes of the murders for the province, and those 10 stations are also part of the national top 10. Delft, as our number 1, is 5th position nationally for murders, but what you would also note that 6 of these stations did show reductions in the first quarter in terms of the murders, and that is Delft, Kraaifontein and Harare, as well as Khayelitsha, Mfuleni, and there's Gugulethu. We also had multiple murders, and that will also bring volumes to our murders. In 37 dockets, we had 90 victims. We had an incident in Khayelitsha where in one incident, 6 people were murdered. And then also in 2 incidents, 4 people at once were murdered. We had 3 victims in 8 cases, and we had 2 victims in 26 cases, and that brings us to the 90 victims at 37 dockets. Here we just gave a small indication of the retaliation incident that happened in Khayelitsha, linked to the extortion. Then we had firearms as the top contributing instrument for murders. Out of the analysis of 994, 498 were committed with firearms. Knives is the second highest contributing instrument at 186, followed by sharp instrument 83, blunt instrument 16. Well, obviously people are beaten in 18 incidents, and stones, bricks or rocks were utilized in 26 incidents. Murder of police officials on and off duty. During the period under review, we had 1 on-duty officer that were murdered, and that was the Constable Phillips in the Sea Point incident that happened at the Somerset Hospital. And then we had 2 off-duty members that were murdered, and that was Constable Arendse, working or stationed at Table Bay Harbour, and the incident happened in Delft. And then we also had the Philippi Rapid Rail member, Warrant Officer Mpakati, also off duty, and the incident also happened in Delft. Murders of the farming community, we had 1 incident, also compared to 1 in the previous financial years, and that happened in Moreesburg, where the owner of the farm was murdered. But what I can say is that we had a positive arrest in this incident. Contact crimes where liquor and drugs were used either by the victim or the perpetrator or both. We had attempted murders, 19 incidents of where liquor were used, and 4 where drugs were used. In murder we had 16, rape 23, drugs used 170, liquor used, and in assault GBH we had 468 charges where the perpetrator or the victim or both used liquor, and 50 drugs. Confirmed incidents at liquor outlets, and that includes taverns and shebeens or pubs, nightclubs, etc. We had 17 incidents where assaults happened, aggravated assaults, 6 rapes, attempted murders 17, and murders 13 incidents at those premises. Then the instrument mostly used at liquor premises, we had 6 incidents where a firearm was used, 3 knives and 3 sharp instruments. Attempted murders, we had decreases during the months of April and June, with the 18 increase in terms of attempted murders in the month of May. This is the contributing stations for the province, with us having 5 stations in the national top 30. Kraaifontein as our number 1 for attempted murders. and number 6 nationally. Manenberg in number 2 provincially, in number 10 nationally, and then we have Delft, Kleinvlei and Ravensmead also in the top stations nationally. The sexual offences, we had reductions in the month of April and May, and 3 more in terms of in the month of June, but an overall reduction of 113. This is our top 30 stations for sexual offences, of which 8 are nationally in the top 30. Delft as our number 1 is also nationally number 3. Harare is our number 2 in nationally number 3. You will note there that 6 of these stations did show reductions of the 8 that are in the national top 30 stations. Rape, also reductions noted in the month of May and June. In April we had increases, but an overall reduction of 46. Our rape stations are reflected on the screen, with Delft, Harare, Gugulethu and Mfuleni being in the top national stations as well. Delft as our number 1 is number 3 nationally, but you will note that these stations did show reductions. The place of occurrence for rape is by far in the residence of the perpetrator or the victim or a known family member's house. 532 of the 909 that was analysed, followed by public places in 143, and then the further breakdown as indicated on the slide. Murder and rape at educational premises. We had 5 incidents of rape at the basic education schools. 2 of these all of the victims were female, of which 2 were under the age of 18, and the incidents happened in Delft, Kleinvlei, Manenberg, Makassar and Seapoint. And we had 1 murder incident of a male victim at the age of 38 that happened on a school premises in Elsis River. Sexual assault, reductions in the first 2 months of the quarter, and then we had an increase of 23 in the month of June. We have 10 stations in the national top 30 stations. Mitchell's Plain as our provincial number 1 station is also number 1 nationally for sexual assault, and then Kraaifontein as our number 2 station, also nationally number 2, and then the breakdown as indicated on the slide. The domestic violence related crimes, you would note there we had 31 murder incidents that are domestic related, of which 14 of the victims were females and 17 males. Attempted murders, we had 23 domestic related, of which 17 of the victims were females and 6 males. Rape, 123, of which 122 were female. If we look at the assault categories, you will note the high volumes contributed by domestic related incidents. Assault GBH 121 that happened in the domestic setting, of which 740 of the victims were females. Assault common 2,662 of the 3,254 victims were females, and the further breakdown as you can see on screen. Kidnappings, so we had an overall reduction of 9 from 246 to 237, with the 1 increase there in the month of June. Kidnappings, it's pleasing to note that none of our stations are in the national top 30, but our top contributing station is Mfuleni, followed by Milnerton, Harare, Delft and Nyanga as the top 5 stations. And fortunately, Milnerton, Harare, Delft as well as Nyanga as those top stations did show reductions over the period. Kidnapping circumstances and causative factors, out of a sampling of 212 incidents, most of these kidnappings happened during hijackings, 51, followed by robberies at 49, rape related 21, retaliation and revenge 17, and domestic related 12. We had 3 incidents where ransom were requested, and then we also had 3 extortion related kidnappings. Assault GBH, we had reductions in the month of April and then increases in May and June, but an overall reduction of 156. The top contributing stations as reflected on the screen, of which Nyanga, Delft, Harare and Mfuleni are also part of the national top 30 stations. Common robberies, you would note in all of the months we had seen increases. with the volume increases in the month of April, followed by May. Common robbery stations, we have 7 of our top 30 stations that form part of the national top 30, and you would note that Cape Town Central is also nationally number 1 for common robberies, followed by Nyanga, Parow, Bellville, Mitchells Plain, Stellenbosch and Tableview. The aggravated robberies, volume increases in the month of May as well as in the month of June, and as I've indicated, an overall increase of 560 in this category. The top contributing stations on the screen, with Nyanga as top station nationally, number 1, and then followed by Kailicha in the province, number 2, nationally in position number 4. We have Philippi East, Harare, Delft, Mfuleni and Linguletu West also in the national top 30 stations for aggravated robberies. Then we would just give a breakdown in terms of the subcategories of aggravated robberies. The trio crimes as a whole, and that is our carjackings, house robberies and business robberies. You would note we had an increase in all of the months, with the volume increases in the month of May, with 78 charges more. The trio crime stations, our top station is Nyanga, followed by Harare and Philippi East, and these 3 stations are also nationally the number 1 stations. And then Delta and Mfuleni also form part of the national top 30 stations. Carjackings, also volume increases in the month of May, with an overall increase of 165. The top contributing stations, as reflected on the screen, with Nyanga and Philippi East, as well as Harare, being the top contributing station nationally for carjackings, followed by Mfuleni and Delft. The vehicle that are most likely hijacked is the sedan or hatchback or coupe, 352 out of the analysis done, followed by a bakkie or panel van. And we also have multi-purpose vehicles that are contributing mostly to the carjackings. Robbery at non-residential premises, reductions in the month of April and then increases in both May and June. The top contributing station for robbery at non-residential premises is Kraaifontein, followed by Linguletu West, Kleinvlei, Milnerton and Kuilsriver. And you will also note that none of our stations form part of the national top 30 stations for robbery at non-residential premises. Robbery at residential premises, in the month of June we had volume reductions, and that brought us to the overall reduction of this crime category, with 36 less for the period under review. The top contributing station for us is Harare, and number 8 nationally, followed by Delft, Philippi East, Kraaifontein, Mfuleni and Kailicha. Robbery of cash in transit, we had 6 incidents, the same as the previous financial year, where we had a reduction in the month of April, but an increase in the month of June. This is the stations that contributed to the cash in transits: Guguletu, De Dorings, Parow, Thembaletu, Saldanha and Franschhoek, each contributing 1 incident. All of these were cross-pavement cash in transits, and Fidelity as the company contributed 5 and SBV contributed 1. Truck hijackings, we had increases in all 3 months with an overall increase of 13. And then 22 stations in the province contributed to the truck hijackings, with Paul being the top contributor with 6, and they are also number 18 nationally on the top 30 stations for the country. Property-related crimes increased overall, with the volume increases in the month of May, 333 more. Property-related stations are Cape Town Central, Stellenbosch and Bellville as the city centres, and Cape Town Central is also top contributing station for property-related crime nationally. Burglary at non-residential premises seen a reduction overall of 49, with the volume reductions in the month of June. The stations contributing are at the burglary at non-residential premises, you would note, is more in the rural areas. Wellington is our number 1 and number 40 nationally. Paul, number 2 for us. Worcester, Stellenbosch and then George as the top 5 stations. also forming part of the national top 30 stations. Burglary at residential premises increased in all of the months, with the volumes in the month of May, followed by June. And the stations contributing is Delft as the top contributor for the province, and they are number 13 nationally, followed by Cape Town Central, Knysna and Worcester, and those four also forming part of the national top 30 stations. Theft of motor vehicle, motorcycle, reductions in April and May, and then we had the 21 more in the month of June, but still an overall reduction for the period under review. Our top contributing station is Milnerton, followed by Cape Town Central, Mfuleni, Woodstock and Brackenfell as the top 5 stations, and none of our stations are part of the top 30 national stations. Theft out and from motor vehicle increases in the month of April and May, and in the month of June we had a reduction of 52. Theft out of motor vehicle stations, we have 8 stations contributing to the national top 30 stations. Cape Town Central is nationally the top station, followed by Stellenbosch, also number 2 nationally. And then we have Bellville, Seapoint, Mitchells Plain, Claremont, Woodstock and Wynberg as the top contributing stations. Stock theft decreased in all of the months with an overall reduction of 53. The stations contributing most is Maritzburg with 10 incidents, followed by Beaufort West, Malmesbury, Oudtshoorn and Paarl, and also none of our stations are in the national top 30 stations. Cattle is mostly stolen during these stock theft incidents, followed by sheep, and then you would see there the breakdown of pigs as one of the top, poultry, horses and ostriches. When we reflect on the crimes dependent on police action for detection, you would note that we had increases, and this is the positive picture, increases overall in all of the months, with the volume increases in the month of June. You will also note that high volumes of our stations are part of the national top 30 stations. Mitchells Plain is our top contributing station for the province, Kraaifontein number 2 and Lentegeur number 3, and these 3 stations are also the top stations nationally. You would also note most of these stations did show increases, and as you can see, 21 of our stations are in the national top 30 stations for crimes dependent on police action. Illegal possession of firearm and ammunition increased positively with 68 charges during the month of June, as well as volumes in the month of May. Drug-related crimes also increases in all of the months, with the most in the month of April and the month of June. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Brigadier Swartz. We're going to come to the question and answer session. May I advise that when you pose a question, you utilize the mic in front of you so that you can be audible. And I will request what we often do, that you introduce yourself and the media house that you're representing, and also indicate to us.
All right, those are the crime statistics in the Western Cape being released by the police executive there. A Brigadier Monica Swartz was just giving us the numbers there, and what she's painted so far is a grim picture in the Western Cape, particularly when it comes to the murder rate. We found out from the police minister last week Friday, when he was releasing the national crime statistics, that the Western Cape was among those provinces with an increase in murder rates, particularly when it comes to the murder of women. Brigadier Swartz said that 93 murders had taken place in just 3 months in the Western Cape. That was in the same period last year. That is, of course, April to June last year. And this year, during the same period, 116 women were killed in the Western Cape. That's 23 more females killed in the Western Cape during the same period last year and this year. All right, now she also said that they have opened 37 dockets and 90 murders being investigated in those dockets. You might remember that in Khayelitsha earlier this year, there's been quite a couple of multiple murders taking place, and she mentioned 3 of those cases being one of the ones that they are investigating. She also announced that overall there are about 900 murders that have taken place in the Western Cape during the period April to June of this year. What Brigadier Swartz also said is that Nyanga is still an area for concern. You might remember that a few years ago there was a point when Nyanga was called the murder capital of the country, and this time she's talking about concern when it comes to hijackings. She says nationally that police station and that area are the top contributing stations on a national level when it comes to car hijacking. This is All Angles here on eNCA. I'm Maseko Rahlaka. Let's take you to a short ad break. More news on the other side.